Today's practice uses the energy of the autumn equinox to help us focus on the idea of balance. During this very brief chat, I'm going to regale you with visuals of the crops along the roads outside of Soul Farm. You can see we're approaching fall harvest. Our next full moon is the harvest moon. The equinox is a few days away, and if you don't know, we look at the day of the equinox as being a 24-hour period that has equal amounts of day and night, light and dark. Astronomically, it's actually just a moment where the tilt of the Earth is straight so that the equator is facing the sun and the northern and southern hemispheres are receiving equal solar light. This is just one moment. It's repeated again at the spring equinox. We really only have 2 moments in a calendar year of perfect balance. Perfect balance is actually a very rare thing. But as humans, we often look at that as a goal. So we look for work-life balance, financial balance, we balance our calories in and energy expended. Balance is this constant but elusive goal. So a student said something in my class this morning, my online class, and she said, walking is simply controlled falling. I was just stunned. What a thought that was. We find ourselves, and in walking, we might intentionally put ourselves off balance, and we take a step to rebalance. And in taking that step, we move. We might move forward. Of course, I thought, that's so cool. Being off balance is the catalyst. It encourages us to find maybe solutions to problems, to look for different ways of living, to take steps in some direction. It drives us in a direction and it encourages our personal growth. Sometimes we might intentionally create an imbalance in order to grow. So for example, I might take a vacation. That's like more rest than work. And maybe I'll do a fast or pull an all-nighter at work. If I'm intentionally implying an imbalance, it can be good. Today's Hatha practice, our physical practice, will be focusing on the body in poses that can help us find and address our body's imbalances. So these poses that I've selected can illuminate any imbalances. Hey, our bodies might never be in perfect balance, but the action of deeply observing and learning can be meditative and mentally quieting. And speaking of quieting, we'll also be looking at balancing our energy. So sometimes we need to apply soothing or stimulating techniques to bring us back into balance. I hope you're able to use this focus as a way of making this practice soothing and meditative for you. I hope you enjoy the practice. So for this practice, you'll need a yoga strap or a long belt and 2 blocks. Hatha yoga simply means the physical practice of yoga. It's the yoga that focuses on the body. But remember, that's also our energetic body as well. Not just the bones and muscles and skin, but also that animating energy that we call prana. So we'd like to work today not only on looking for imbalances in our body, but also working on balancing our energy. And we'll talk about that as we move. Come to the front of your mat. Have your blocks handy, and why don't we lift them to the highest level right away. And find Tadasana or mountain pose. Roll your shoulders together, back and down, and press your feet down into your mat. As you press your feet down deeply, also reach your fingers down. Think about a strong downward grounding flow of energy. And as you focus on that downward flow of energy, also become aware of the upward flow of energy. Lift your inner arches. Draw your low belly in and up. Press the crown of your head up towards the sky. And as you create some tension in your body, focusing on not just pressing down, but also lifting up, you may feel more stable. You might feel less swaying. Then, inhale and lift your arms high. And as you exhale, soften your knees and bring your fingertips to your blocks Move your blocks back until they align with your heels, and step your right leg way back. Now, please note I'm mirroring you, so go by my words. It may look like my left leg is back, and it is, but I'm cueing right because it'll make sense in a few moments. So lift your heart, and then extend your front leg towards straight and bend. Now, as we move from a lunge into a hamstring stretch, pay attention to the tension in the front of your hip as you lunge and in your hamstring as you extend your leg straight. What we're looking for is we're going to try to discern as we look at the left and right sides of the body where we're a little tighter and maybe out of balance. Pause the next time that you bend your knee and lower your right knee all the way down to the mat and the top of your foot. Straighten your front knee just a little bit and tuck your tailbone down, and then re-enter, and you should feel a more intense stretch in the front of your right leg and in your front of your right hip. Just pause there, close your eyes perhaps. This is information gathering that we're doing right now. Feel the tension. There shouldn't be a lot of sensation in your low back. When we tilt our tailbone down, we're opening the low back and focusing on a deep stretch in the front of the hip. Now let's look at the left hamstring. So extend your front leg as straight as you comfortably can. Flex your foot. You can move your blocks. They're there for balance. This time, tilt your tailbone slightly upward, up. So it's like you're tilting your pelvis forward. With your hands on your blocks, extend your heart towards your lifted big toe. Again, close your eyes. Assess the amount of stretch you feel. How far do you need to lean forward to find that stretch? How challenging is it to tilt your pelvis forward, lifting your tailbone up? Now open your eyes and place your foot back on the mat, bending your knee. Lift your right knee off the mat, spin, and we'll face the long edge of the mat. Take easy bends into first your right knee and then your left knee. So this is where the mirroring makes a little bit more sense. Just working on opening up the inner thighs. You might want to pay attention here. Inner thighs probably are more balanced because our activities don't really focus on one or the other more. But it's still a good time to pay attention to how the inner thighs stretch and feel. And the next time that you bend your right knee, pause. Spin now and face the other end of your mat. With your fingertips on your blocks, lift your heart and straighten your back leg. Extend your front knee towards straight and then bend. A couple of rhythmic stretches like this. Just starting to get the muscles awake, ready for some deeper stretching, some deeper assessment. Take one more extended leg, and the next time that you bend your knee, pause. Lower your left knee and the top of your foot down to the mat. Extend your front knee just a little bit. Tuck your tailbone down, so down towards the mat. Whole pelvis tilts, and then re-enter the lunge. The goal here is not to make this a deep back bend in the low back, but focus on intense stretch in the front of the hip and the quad. Close your eyes. Try to relax the muscles around your hips so that you can really enter a stretch and assess. Think about the things that you do in your life that could cause an imbalance. A really good one, of course, is driving a car. For most of us, our right leg is more active. A couple more deep breaths here. Then begin to extend your right knee towards straight. Adjust your foot. You might have to extend forward a little bit more. And then think about tilting your tailbone forward as you let your heart draw towards your big toe. Now, I don't have a whole lot of flexibility here, so I don't fold forward a lot. But if you can go further, that's great. The key is don't round your back to do it. Try to initiate the movement from the pelvis, tilting your pelvis forward. That will give you a true assessment of your hamstring flexibility. We're not looking for the spine here, we're looking for the hamstring. Take a few deep breaths. Now, I can tell you right now, if I went and rewound this film, I would probably find that I'm folding less far on this side than I did on the other. So that gives me a really valuable piece of information. I'm tighter in my hamstring on this side. I think it's time to rebend our knee. Move your blocks so that you can curl your back toe under and lift. And then we'll come back to some side to side lunges. I'm sorry, am I in your way? Just move back and forth. And the next time that you bend your left knee, pause and come all the way back to the front of your mat. Lower your back knee, then lower both knees and move your blocks forward. Place your fingers very close to the front of your mat. I call this the starting line. As you inhale, lift your tailbone, lift your gaze, and let your belly drop towards the mat. And exhale and take a deep round in your spine. Chin to chest, tailbone tilts towards the mat. Inhale into your back bend, and exhale into your rounded, flexed spine. Back and forth a couple of times like this. This is just a nice balanced action. You'll notice that yoga thinks a lot about the spine. One of the big reasons for that is our major energy pathways are Ida and Pingala nadis, which are our feminine and our masculine energy, our lunar and our solar energy, flow along the length of our spine. These are like our super highways of energy. The next time you round, that's going to be our last. Come back to a long neutral spine. Lift your, and I'm going to say right arm and do my right arm this time, high to the sky, and then thread your right arm under your left. Pause for just a moment, just hover above the mat, and then do it again. Inhale as you lift, and exhale as you thread. And do that a few times. Right now, we're just pumping some heat and some blood into the shoulder, the upper back. And then the next time that you thread, pause and lower your head and the side of your head and your shoulder all the way down to the mat. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths into the back of your upper back, or I guess that is the back of your upper back, but around your shoulder blade. Just assessing any tightness, any imbalance you might feel here, tension. Then press your right hand down and lift your upper body back to a tabletop. And we'll just simply do that to the other side. So lift your left arm and thread your left arm under your right. We'll do this a few times. Give a nice squeeze at the top, build some heat in this movement. And the next time that you thread, lower your shoulder in the side of your face all the way down. Close your eyes if you can. If in any time this bothers your balance, I should say, you can keep your eyes open. But if you can, close them, because that will really illuminate some interesting information as you breathe and assess the mobility and tightness around your left shoulder blade. And then, pressing down with your right hand, come back to tabletop. Start to walk your knees away from your hands until you feel like, okay, if I go any further, that's going to be uncomfortable. Glue your hands down and stretch your hips back. See if you can rest your forehead on the mat, and if you can't, that's okay. It's better to hover here than to bend the elbows or slide the hands towards you to make it easy. And just assess any sensation in the right and in the left shoulder. This is kind of nice because we can do both at once. So any impingement, for example, in the tops of your shoulders, or the stretch you feel in your chest or in the fronts of your shoulders, just see if the right and the left side feels balanced. And then lift your shoulders and walk your knees back. So once you come into your tabletop, move your hands forward a few inches, curl your toes under, and lift your knees, lift your hips to a pike position, an upside down V, and pedal your feet. This is downward facing dog, of course, and pedal the feet, working through the calves and the soles of the feet. Then come to stillness and pivot both of your heels to the right, bend your right knee, press your left heel down deep into the mat. So this stretch in the calf might be a little more intense in the outer calf. Really straighten your knee and see how this feels in your calf. Calves can be very, very tight. Come back to center and pivot your heels to the left. Bend your left knee, press your right heel down, and assess this side. Again, this might be a leg that you use more frequently, certainly for driving, but depending on your sports, this could be a leg that you use more dominantly in a lot of different activities or other jobs or things that you have going on. And then come back to center, soften your knees, and walk your feet forward to your hands. Dangle for a moment here, and then place your hands on your blocks. Move your blocks forward, separate your feet so that you have between your big toes about 6 inches. Separate your heels a little bit more than that. Try at first to come into a long straight spine. So think about making a block shape. Bend your left knee. Keep your right leg really straight. Keep your right hand on your block, sweep your right arm high. And you can allow your left hip to lower. What we're doing is creating a lot of length on the right side of our right leg. So you'll feel a stretch perhaps not just in your hamstring, but all the way through your outer thigh, from your hip down maybe to your knee. If you're not really feeling any stretch, you just might need to have your block a little bit lower. So kudos to you, but go where you need to find the right intensity to open up perhaps your IT band or your outer hamstring. Pay attention. This is a great way by lowering your block to see how open that hamstring is. So take a moment and explore lowering your block if you need to, not by rounding the spine. We want to maintain a long spine. You're hinging at the hips and tilting your tailbone up. If this is bothering you to keep your hand high, you can certainly bend your elbow and rest your knuckles on your left hip. And then we'll replace our right hand down on the block, lift your blocks again, come back up to where you don't feel much stretch at all, and then we'll bend the right knee, keep the left leg straight, start with the simplest level, twist. Again, I'm tighter on this side, so I don't think I'm going to be lowering my block as much. My goal is to create even sensation between the two sides. Not necessarily to get that sensation through doing the movement exactly the same, because if I'm not balanced, I might require more or less hinging from the hips. Once you know your tighter side, that's really good information, because what you'll do to get both sides back in balance is take more time with the tighter side. Maybe hold it a little bit longer. That's something you can do in your personal practice. It's hard to get that in a class. I don't know if you can hear this bee that's buzzing around me. Now, if I was doing my own practice, I might hold this a little bit longer, working to create that symmetry in my body. But today, since I'm working with you and I don't know what your situation is, we're going to go for more balance. And we place our hands on our blocks, straightening our legs. Take a moment to lengthen your spine. Make sure your heels are still separated. Lift your tailbone, and now you might feel like, hey, I can actually fold forward a little bit more than I did before. Lower your blocks as needed. Keep your spine long. If you can close your eyes, do that. Make your breath long and smooth. Feel the air flowing through your nostrils, over your throat, and all the way into your lungs on your inhale, and then exhale and reverse it. Forward folds are really good for calming and soothing your nervous system. If you're feeling anxious, if your energy is too high, a forward fold can be really helpful. Now, soften your knees. Bring your fingertips to your mat by your feet and extend one leg and then the other leg back to the top of a push-up. Firm up your belly. We'll lift to a downward facing dog and then come forward to a plank. Back and forth. Downward facing dog on your inhale and exhale into your plank. Just a couple more. And now as you come forward, lower your knees and lower your belly and your heart to the mat. So grab your strap, roll onto your back. Let's take a closer look at the hamstrings. We've got them completely warmed up. If you determined rather, which hamstring was tighter, I suggest starting with that one. So my left hamstring is definitely tighter. Draw your left knee into your chest. Loop the strap over the ball of your foot. Extend your leg low and make certain your knee's completely straight. And then very slowly lift just until you feel the beginning of a stretch. Now you can see I'm not lifting super high, but I am keeping my knee very straight. That's what's important. As my hamstring relaxes and adapts, I might be able to lift a little bit higher. The reason I asked you to do your tighter side first is that we often give more attention to the first side that we do. Is this perfect? Is this right? No. But it's probably reality for most of us. So if you know your tighter or weaker side, it might be a good idea to always stretch or work that side first. As you can see, I'm slowly getting a little bit more lift. We're holding this. It takes a while to make a true change in the length of the muscles. We're not rushing this at all. Now, take the strap in just one hand. So if your left leg is lifted, slide your left hand up. Keep your shoulder blade on the mat, but make your arm completely straight. And you can look and you can see how much strap you have. That's what's kind of nice here. So you've got something visual to use to see how close you can get your hand to your big toe. Then release a little bit. Bend your right knee, well, my right knee, could be your left knee, your other knee, and place your ankle on your knee. Move your strap to the side. We'll just do a simple hip opener. I'm feeling very tight today for some reason. Interlace your hands around your hamstring. I like to circle my knee. So when I say circle my knee, the knee that your ankle's resting on, in my case, is my right knee, is pointing up towards the sky, and I'm going to draw circles with that knee on the sky. If I had a spotlight, it would look like one of those big box store spotlights pointing up in the sky, trying to attract attention. The next time my knee draws in, I'm going to pause and lift my head and see if I can touch my nose to my ankle, which, as you can see, I'm not going to do, but you might be able to. And then replace your foot on the mat and extend your leg straight, your leg we were just stretching. All right, now we can go to the other side. So loop the strap around the ball of your other foot. Extend the leg very straight without there being any tension. So keep your leg low to the ground and then slowly lift your leg up. If this is your looser, your more stretchy side, you might be immediately feeling like, oh yeah, I got a big difference there. So yoga is a lot about creating balance in the body. But in order to do that, of course, we've got to develop and fine-tune our awareness. A lot of people aren't even aware of the imbalances in their body unless they have an injury or some sort of a condition. But day-to-day life creates imbalances, and those might be a little more subtle. Close your eyes, and on your exhales, challenge the stretch a bit. We'll hold this for a few more breaths. And then slowly lower the leg a few inches. Actually, we have to do what we did on the other side. Take the strap now, just in the same hand as the leg you're lifting, and slide the hand up, keeping your shoulder on the mat. And you have a visual there. How close can you get this hand to your toe? Some of you might be able to grab your toe with your hand. Remember, this isn't about experience or skill. This is just your unique body. All of us have different dimensions, different proportions, and different skeletons that can cause differences in our own ranges of motion. Release your stretch. Bend your other knee. Place your ankle on your knee. Lift your foot off the mat and interlace your hands around your hamstring. And again, draw your circles in the sky. Hips too can be out of balance, and a lot of times that can manifest in some sort of pain, maybe discomfort in the hip, the low back, or down your hamstring on one side as opposed to the other. That might also be related to little issues in the SI joint. That would definitely take more diagnosis than we can give in a video, though. But it's nice to be aware that these things, if you feel them, you can address them. The next time you draw your knee in, lift your head off the mat, and then lower. Now, bend your knees. Place your feet on the mat fairly close to your hips. You should be able to just brush your fingers with your, just brush your heels with your fingers. And then press your low back down and begin to lift your spine off the mat. Coming into a back bend, interlace your hands and tuck your shoulder blades deep underneath you. Lift your hips as high as you comfortably can and tilt your tailbone towards your knees. Take a few breaths there. We're going to start to think a little bit more about energy. We said forward folds were very good for soothing, pacifying, calming your energy, and back bends are actually very good for stimulating your energy. Back bends tend to wake us up. If we're feeling sluggish, they're more invigorating. Release your hands and slowly lower your hips back down to the mat. We're going to come back to that bridge pose in a moment. But for now, open your arms to the side like a T. Shift your hips over to the right a couple of inches. Lift your feet off the floor. Draw your knees into your chest and then drop your knees over to the left. If this twist feels uncomfortable, you can place a block under your knees. However, I would rather have your knees on the ground and let your other shoulder, your right shoulder, lift away from the mat. That's okay. There's no rule about getting your shoulder on the mat, but we can pay attention to how far we can rest our shoulder on the mat. Let's do this. Take your right arm, sweep it up towards the sky, roll onto your left side, and sandwich your hands, and then reopen, coming back into the twist, and lower. And do that a few times. Just roll to your left side, sandwich your hands, and then open like a T again. Now we're going to do that 4 times. And when you come to your 4th time, lower your arm and see, is your shoulder blade comfortably resting on the mat, or do you have a little bit of lift? That's going to give you some information about your chest and your shoulder. When we do the other side, we can see if there's any imbalance here. And again, you're not symmetrical. You use one side. For me, it's my right hand more often. I'll reach forward more often with that hand. That's my dominant arm. There's a good chance it's tighter. Lift your knees back to center. Rebalance your hips, and now we have the moment of truth. So shift your hips to the left, draw your knees in, and drop both of your knees over towards the right. And again, we'll roll, touch our palms, and then open. And do this a few times. Kind of stretching and releasing, and then the next time that you lower your left arm all the way down, pause. So I can see without much doubt that my left side is tighter. Not what I expected. It's actually kind of cool. A surprise is always interesting. My left shoulder is quite a bit off the mat, but I know that this stretch I'm doing right now is really good for opening up the chest and the shoulders. Take a few deep breaths, and as you do, notice how as you inhale, the feeling of stretch intensifies. Tightness in the chest and the shoulders tends to draw our shoulders forward, causing us to slouch, and that's really a bad posture and difficult. Let me rephrase that. Start over. That really affects our energy levels. Bad posture affects our breathing, and therefore can really cause some fatigue and lethargy. Lift your arm, sandwich your arms again, and now from this side position, press yourself up to seated. Here we are. Yoga has some good breathing techniques that can help with energy. So one is Nadi Shodhana. I'm going to move a little bit closer in so you can see what I'm doing. So Nadi Shodhana is a pranayama. It's a breathing technique that is used to balance energy. Like we said before, the main energy pathways, the nadis in our body, flow along the spine. On our left side is our more lunar, our calming, more passive form of energy. We call that Ida, I-D-A. And on our right side is a more active, masculine, solar form of energy, which is Pingala, P-I-N-G-A-L-A. This is using your right hand. You can take your second and third fingers, rest them in your palm. I like to just rest it between my two eyebrows. And your thumb will open and close your right nostril, and your fourth finger will open and close your left nostril. So I wish I could be prettier about that. I'm covering my face, but you can see what I'm doing. So rest your two fingers between your eyebrows or in your palm and close your eyes. Before you open and close any nostrils, just breathe through both and see if you can discern if one nostril is more open, more active than the other. And now you can determine if you're correct. So finish an exhalation here. With your fourth finger, close your left nostril and inhale through the right. Then close your right nostril, open your left, and exhale. Inhale through your left nostril. Close your left nostril, open your right, and exhale. Inhale through your right nostril. Close your right nostril, open your left, and exhale. Inhale through your left. Close the left, open the right, and exhale. Now continue that a few more rounds. Exhale, inhale, switch sides. Exhale, inhale, switch sides. Your next round on your left side will be your last. You'll finish by exhaling through the right nostril, then lower both of your hands and return to normal breathing. See if that breathing pattern, Nadi Shodhana, made any difference in whether one nostril feels more open or not. It might have, it might not have. But this is a really good breathing pattern to practice, especially if you struggle with anxiety. If you're a woman who's struggling with hot flashes, issues sleeping, this breath pattern can really help. Done about 10 minutes or so a day. Doesn't sound like much, but 10 minutes of that can be hard. It's something you might need to work up to. Now make your way back onto your back. I'll meet you there in just a moment. Okay, a moment is up. I'm back. You'll need your block handy. If you have thinner blocks, make sure you have both of them. Blocks come in different thicknesses. Bend your knees and have your heels close to your hips with your hands by your side. We're going to move into a back bend with an opportunity for an inversion. Now, anytime you have your hips higher than your heart and your heart higher than your head, this can change the blood pressure in your body, increasing blood flow to the head. If you have issues with your blood pressure, issues with your eyes, certainly any sort of eye conditions can be contraindicated. Keep your hips on the mat or just take a very light lift in the pelvis. You should know if you've got to modify some of these movements. If you have no issues like that and you want to go further, lift your hips and place a block underneath your hips. I'm tall, so I can place a block at its highest level. You may need your block a little bit lower. Interlace your hands around your blocks and tuck your shoulders underneath you. Relax your belly when you're here, but try to keep your knees closer together rather than splaying apart. As you relax your belly, it can rise and fall with your breath. This is really nice for giving the internal organs a little massage. If you'd like to go further into a full inversion, you can do that now with me. Again, if you have any issues with blood pressure, eye conditions, certainly if you're pregnant, you're going to keep your feet solid on the mat or even lower your hips. First, assess that your block is firm underneath your hips, and if it feels solid and stable, lift one leg. And if that feels okay, you can lift your other leg as well. Keep the back bend, keep your chest lifted towards your chin. This is called Viparita Karani, and it's a pretty accessible inversion. As we said before, inversions are like nervines. They tend to balance your nervous system, regardless of whether you're working with high energy that needs to be reduced or low energy that needs to be increased. Inversions tend to help. They work us towards balance. In Viparita Karani, which translates to unusual practice, this is interesting. It's a back bend and an inversion in one. So if you let your upper back collapse to the mat, that is going to cause you to lose the benefit of the back bend. Instead, draw your shoulder blades together, keep your chest, your heart open as you lift your feet. Notice if you have any feelings of maybe restlessness, impatience. Sometimes I do in a back bend. That's why I mentioned those. Or you might find it just very soothing. Just a few more breaths. If you're feeling like it's time to come out, you can always lower your feet to the mat and stay in the back bend another moment or two. And then lower your feet to the mat now. Lift your hips, remove your block, keep your hips lifted, and reach your arms high over your head. And slowly lower your spine, a vertebra at a time. Stretching your hips away from your fingers, giving your torso a lengthening stretch, and then extend your legs straight. Wrap your right hand around your left wrist. Give your left wrist a pull. Push your left heel away. Make your left side very long. And then we'll balance by wrapping the left hand around the right wrist and repeating that. Right heel presses away. And then just release your arms. Bring your hands into any position that you like for a few moments of simple rest, Shavasana. Oftentimes we take this with our hands by our hips, but sometimes I just love to let my arms come into a completely different position. They may be out to the side, hands on the chest and belly, whatever feels really good. Take an inhale and then a long sigh in your exhale. Allow yourself to become very, very still just for a moment and let all of this integrate. Bring your attention to your body. Feel the left and the right sides. You might notice one foot perhaps flops a little out to the side more than the other. Maybe one arm is more internally or externally rotated than the other. Yoga helps us to work with what we can change. And some of these things are in our bones and can't be changed. I think there's a saying about that. Bring some movement into your body now and make your breath a little bit deeper. Something about changing what we can and accepting what we can't. I did not make that up. Bend your knees, roll on to one side. Keep your eyes closed and press yourself up to seated. And bring your palms together at the heart. Give yourself a deep inner bow for taking the time to get on your mat, for exploring your body, and I hope that you're armed with a little bit more information, a little more body awareness about any imbalances that you might have. And I thank you very much for sharing your effort and your energy with me. Namaste. Good work.